Welcome back, players. I'm Jack with 3-6 Cancel, and this is Coco the Weiss Cat. And this is our second episode of 3-6 Cancel's Attack on Titan Rondo. So, welcome to the second episode of our AOT Rondo, players. In part 1 of our series, we highlighted the infamous Mono Blue Titan that features the Colossal Titan combo. If you haven't seen that already, check the link in the description. But today, we're moving on from Titans to their arch nemesis. I'm talking about humanity's strongest soldier, Levi. Captain Levi and the other members of the Survey Corps are featured as green in Attack on Titan. And that name isn't just an accurate description. Humanity's strongest soldier Levi is actually the name of a very special card that's in today's deck tech. Because for our second part of the AOT Rondo, we're moving into a mono green build. So instead of Titans, this build features all the members of the Survey Corps, with Levi being the obvious star. Most of the strongest cards in the green feature Levi. Again, another flavorful move on behalf of Bushiroad. He appears on the majority of green rares and double rares in both sets 1 and 2. In Attack on Titan Set 2, he even got 2 new rare level 1 cards to construct a more Levi-focused deck. But the deck we're looking at here actually features Classic Levi and his Special Operations Squad, because, just like Blue Titan, even in Set 1 this was an interesting deck. It's centered around a core combo that came out in Set 1 and was bolstered with more tools in Set 2, also just like Blue Titan. But it also captures most of the really cool green cards in both sets, so by looking at this deck, we'll see a lot of what green Attack on Titan has to offer. But enough introductions, let's jump right into this deck tech. I lovingly call this deck Squad Goals. So at first glance here, you'll actually notice the majority of the deck comes from Set 1. It's like the Mono Blue Titan build, the pieces were all there, but what Set 2 ended up doing was giving us the glue to hold them all together. And the Level 0 game of Squad Goals is a great example. Old Squad with new toys. But what is Old Squad? Well, remember how we said that the deck was centered around a combo from Set 1? You would build your deck around this card, the one that we mentioned earlier, and then throw in other stuff to support the combo. But the deck of course needs things that aren't exclusively combo pieces. It needs good level 0s that answer threats or run around, and efficient beaters. And a classic piece from Set 1, and a good place to start this level 0 game, is Petra. Petra is a simple 1500 power clock switcher. She doesn't have another fancy ability like Switch or Encore, but she also doesn't really need it. While this ability is printed on commons in later sets, and the rares that carried it can be bought with a change in your car's cup holder, it's still a good one. And that's why she makes an appearance here. She clock switches, and she clocks for green. You might not run cards like this in multicolor decks because of the litany of powerful options the Titan has, but Bushi was smart. They give us good cards to round out any deck we felt like playing. So thanks to Petra, Squad Goals still has answers to common level 0 problems. So what else does this deck attack with? Another front row character in this lineup is a newer addition. This is Single Ray of Light Levi. On play, check top 3, add a green character, then pitch 1. He's a color-locked Akatsuki that's only 3/4 as good, but he's level 0, and Bushi knows how good level 0 Akatsukis are. In later sets they were careful not to make that mistake again. So again, not something you'd run in every deck, but this is one of those specialized tools we got in Set 2, especially for Mono Green. Single Ray of Light Levi was a godsend to this deck. In fact, you might say he's exactly what it needed, a reliable, cheap, and easy way to filter your hand for combo pieces. And at 2500, he's not a bad beater either. Moving on to our last front row character, Hanj appears as a one-of. She's a 2k pay 1 pitch 1 search that, you guessed it, also clocks for green. She's an emergency search that swings for damage, and that actually covers our level 0 frontrunners. There aren't as many of them in this deck because level 0 game actually has 2 combo pieces in it, and they take up several slots. And then there's the normal back row utility cards. I want to save the 2 combo pieces for last since it'll be closer to level 1, where it all happens. So let's look at the back row tech. This is Until the Dying Breath Erwin. As you can see, he's a Brainstormer which taps 2. He's not the most amazing Brainstormer ever, but he's a green search Brainstormer, and green did not have a Brainstormer in Titan Set 1. No, he's not as good as Aaron or the newer Mikasa, but he also boosts Levi's, Hanj's, and other Erwins in front of him, which is important as you'll see later. And like on most limited by name power boosts, it's through both turns, which for 1k into level is pretty dang nifty. He's also not nearly as expensive as an Aaron Brainstormer, which, as you know, aren't terribly cheap or easy to find. Without the Aaron, Squad Goals is a very inexpensive deck to pick up, just like Blue Titan. Which is another reason I'd like to feature it. If I can break away from the level 0 game for just a moment, I don't think decks like this get enough attention sometimes. The ones that are inexpensive and off-meta but competitive and relatively strong. They're not waifu decks and they're not meme decks, but they hold a special place in the game. Remember, in Weiss Schwarz, just about any deck is viable, except Set 1 Excel World. Heck, someone once took Worlds with only 2 Disgaea trial decks smushed together, so I really encourage people to pick out new things and try them, being that Weiss Schwarz, as it stands, is a rather inexpensive card game on the whole. It's not hard to go online now and pick up most of the components for a deck. So players, I encourage you to try new things, and that's why I do these deck techs. And of course, we'll be here to feature all the cool ideas and decks to show you what's all out there. But anyway, back to the deck tech at hand. The other piece of the back row tech not included in the combo is Violent Nipples Levi. He's a 500 global assist with another cool ability. When he comes on the board, you can choose a character in your opponent's center stage and cut their power by 1000. One thing to remember here is that in Weiss Schwarz, if a character's power is 0, they go to the waiting room. So many of the runners and reversers that plague the center stage actually just fold to this card. And if not right away, Levi can cut a lot of bigger opponents down to size, and that's at any level. Between his global boost and his initial cut, he can close a 1500 power gap on his own. That's pretty handy, especially for things like clock kickers and restanders, which, spoiler alert, are 2 things that this deck has in abundance. So, he's a tech piece. So with all those other cards done, now we come to the 2 combo pieces. It's a good time to start explaining what this deck is all about. So, Eld and Gunther here are actually part of a larger whole. They work in tandem with a whole other front row that comes out at level 1. So there's not much point in playing them at level 0 aside from just swinging for damage. And even then, losing them to attackers isn't a bad thing. At level 0, they're kind of like sacrificial lambs to throw out to the lions, because as it turns out, the waiting room is actually where you want these guys. And on the stage, they work together. Each one of them has one ability that they give out to the whole field so long as they're together, and one other ability that they give specifically to humanity's strongest soldier, Levi. Eld here gives Levi plus 1000 power, and so long as Gunther is around, he's also a global 500 assist. And Gunther also gives Levi power, but then so long as Eld is on the board, gives all your core characters plus 1 level. So that's pretty good. Together they're a global 500 and global level assist. That's not bad even if Levi isn't around to get the boost. But when they're not together, they only give that first ability. So having one without the other is kind of pointless, unless, like we said before, they're swinging for damage. So that wraps up our level 0 game. What you see here is a lot of good back row characters with some front row tech. Nothing particularly strong or problematic though. Since this is a combo deck, a good chunk of the level 0 is actually about supporting that combo. So as a result, while the cards are okay, it's not the main appeal of the deck. I rank the level 0 game of Green Titan a B. So now that we've gotten through the level 0, it's time to look at the main event. The show really starts at level 1, and it opens with this guy here. Humanity's strongest soldier Levi is our centerpiece, and he also happens to be a wall of text. Starting with the easy part, he gets plus 2k if he's in the middle center. The rest of the text is a climax combo. When Special Operations Squad is placed in your climax zone, you can pay the cost of discarding a core character and putting a character from your stage into the waiting room. If you do, you can take up to one of each of these characters from your waiting room and put them onto separate positions of your stage. Member of Levi Squad Petra, member of Levi Squad Oro, member of Levi Squad Gunther, and member of Levi Squad Eld. So to break this down, basically, with a climax and level 1 Levi, you can sacrifice a character and then discard one to put out a full field. Each one of the characters out here support Levi and in turn are supported by him. So we know what Levi does, and we know about Gunther and Eld, so what about the other parts of the front row? Let's begin with this Petra. As long as Levi is out, she gets plus 2000, and so long as Oro is out, she gives the character in the middle center hand encore. Funny note here, if Oro is out and Levi isn't, she'll still give the middle center hand encore even if she's smaller. And if you know Petra, you know Oro. The only difference between these two cards is that Oro gives the power boost to the middle center of plus 15k. The only difference between these two cards is that Oro's unique ability is to give a power boost to the middle center position of 1,500. And again, it's any character in the middle center. So quickly, let's recap. You play Levi, you play the climax, you sacrifice a character, and you discard a character. Then you take all 4 of these squad members, and you make a complete stage, and your opponent is facing off against the whole Special Operations Squad, and their out-of-this-world teamwork. And of course, the keystone of that is Levi. He gets 2k from being in the middle center, 1.5k from Oro, 1 from Eld, 1 from Gunther, and another 500 from Eld, and then of course the hand encore from Petra. So at 5.5k base, adding all that, the combo gives you a virtually untouchable 11.5 thousand Levi that's level 2 with hand encore. So obviously that's pretty cool, but it's not without its vulnerabilities. Petra and Oro are only 6.5 each, and Levi is kind of vulnerable to anti-change if you have a level assist out. The really cool thing about this combo is how few cards you actually have to spend to make a full field. And the flexibility too. Levi and the Climax are the only cards you actually have to hold in your hand. It's not like other combos where you need to fix your hand and assemble the pieces. You can pitch a squad member to things like Hanj or Single Ray of Light Levi to set up your combo, and feel free to do it over and over again. Use another squad member to hand encore Levi when your opponent tries to deal with him, and then resurrect them with another Climax. Special Ops Squad is a really cool and unique combo, a kind of true Voltron style strategy. But now isn't the time to talk shop. We have the rest of the deck to go over, and at that, the rest of the level 1. There's only one more card here, and it's this Erwin. He's kind of an alternative play at level 1 and a tech inclusion. He's a 1/1 that gets 500 for each other character, with a unique ability. If he's still on the field during your encore step, you can pitch a card then pay a stock to burn your opponent for 1. Now, burn 1 isn't particularly powerful, but it's an interesting piece of technology on a level 1 character. It has a lot of fringe uses if you know what your opponent's deck is like, and it's a great way to get climaxes out of your stock even after you're done attacking. And if you're low on stock or have an odd number, he makes for a good alternative finisher at level 3. As a 2-of, Erwin's a great tech choice. And that's our level 1 game. Mostly combo with a little splash for options. But how strong is it? Well, for very low cost, it puts out a lot of characters and high amounts of power. And Special Ops is tough to deal with, especially if you get it off more than once. And of course, you have to take note that this is a Climax combo that doesn't even need the Climax to work. You can set up the squad or parts of it yourself, and it still works without playing Special Ops. So it has high power, good card advantage, and flexibility. But on the downside, the level 1 itself doesn't search or bounce or do any other cool stuff. It's kind of a self-contained thing. And of course, the 2 side lanes are smaller and vulnerable to reverse combos. All said and done, I give it an A-. Really cool and pretty strong, but not the best of the best. Moving on, level 2 game here is an interesting one. 3 different cards, including the 1 red card in the deck. So let's get that one out of the way. It's Jean, a 2/1 2500 backup with a pitch 2 anti-change clause. It's a standard Titan inclusion where there's room, and most decks have room for anti-change. It's a bread and butter backup and a clone of other anti-change backups, but they're good ones, so it makes an appearance. Next we have an assister. Cleanup Levi is a level assister that gives another 500 power to a character that you choose during the beginning of your climax phase, but if the character you choose is called Resisting Fate Levi, it gets the additional ability that your opponent can't back up against it. And Resisting Fate Levi is one of your finishers, and not backing up against a restander is pretty good. And now we have an early play. Beyond the Walls Levi is a 2/1 that gets -1 level if you have 4 or more core characters on your stage. He's 7,000 and gets an additional 1,000 if all your characters are core, and you can't back up against him either. All in all, he's a really solid early play, and in a strange way, he's a good defense against anti-change. I've always thought this card was pretty good, but it didn't fit in most decks. Now it's finally found a home. So what's there to say about this level 2? Well, honestly, not much. The cards are good on their own merit, and the game plan is solid. It's not like hitting level 2 changes your game plan a lot, but the stuff it does unlock is useful. I give it a B+. So now we're looking at the level 3 game. A good split between main finishers, alternative finishers, and early plays. Starting with the early play and some of the new toys from set 2, we have Silent Fury Levi. It's an early play healer that gets big, and with a 2 or less climax in the waiting room early play cause, so it's like our friends Yuna or Battleship Hydra Ogre. Standard, but solid. What makes this card cool is that you know Bushi put it in the set to round out decks that were primarily green and give them more tools. And it really makes the monocolor deck variant run well. Again, I have to applaud Titan Set 2 since it gave good and usable tools to just about everything. And speaking of Set 2 tools, it also introduced the deck's main finisher and level 3 climax combo. This is to seize Freedom Hanj, and it's one of the most unique finishers you'll ever see. Her first ability is a digging draw 2 pitch 2 stock top. So you draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards, then take the top card of your deck and put it into your stock. So she actually only costs 1 stock. That ability used to be on a lot of early play cards, but you don't see it too much anymore. But it makes an appearance on this Hanj in her amalgam of random abilities, the second of which is a power boost. When she attacks, you can pay a stock to give Hanj and another character 1500 power until the end of turn. Boosting both Hanj and another character is not bad for 1 stock on attack, considering she's a clock kicker, which really comes in handy. Yep, her third ability is a clock kick combo that happens when you climax with standby for full scale assault. So Hanj is a hodgepodge of abilities, but when you come down to it, she digs for her own climax, she effectively costs 1 stock, and she clock kicks without paying. Not to mention she power boosts to ensure the kick. I mean, what more could you ask for in a clock kicker? I still think the best clock kick finisher in English is Akagi Kai from Kantai Collection Set 1, but Hanj is good for different reasons. And even if she's not number 1, I think she's up there. So the last card in the lineup is Resisting Fate Levi. He's the only green level 3 from set 1, and he's another wall of text. But he only has 2 abilities. The first is a climax combo. When you put Wings of Freedom into your climax zone, you can discard a core character. If you do, choose a core character from your clock and put it into any position of your stage. So it's a clock to stage heal. A nifty trick is to put a level 3 from the clock on the field if you know you're not going to have enough stock to play it. But the downside to this is that none of the come into play or the more famous the turn this character is played from your hand abilities will trigger if you do this. So a lot of people don't end up playing this climax. And it's a level 3 climax that rubs against Hanj's, so there's not much reason to run it. I have it as a 1-of in this deck just because I happen to have a foil laying around. I probably wouldn't if I wanted to make this deck totally efficient. But still, it's a heal that gets around anti-heal, and back in the day, it was really popular since it was one of the only cards that did something like that. But he also has a restand ability. It's a costly pay 3 and pitch a core character, but it doesn't need a climax combo, so you can play it in tandem with Hanj very well. Since Hanj is so cheap to operate and gives a power boost, she complements Resisting Fate Levi super well, and I have no doubt it was designed like this. So our level 3 has an early play healer, a clock kicker, and a restander. It's actually very similar to what our Abyssal deck ran, and that was a great level 3. I actually think though, in a lot of ways, this suite is a little better because it has more digging and costs less. So while I ended up giving the Abyssal's level 3 an A-, I'm ranking this suite a straight A. So our deck adds up to something really unique and interesting, and the tools feel really good to use. So let's look at how it plays. You draw your opening hand, and the first thing you do is pitch all of your cards that add into the squad combo. You want them in the waiting room anyway, so it really opens up your hand. You put down Single Ray of Light Levi's to find your level 1 Levi while pitching more squad members. And in the meantime, you swing from some damage with unimportant bodies. By the time you hit level 1, you should lay down the combo and do it as many times as you can to maximize your hand advantage. Don't be afraid to substitute the back row for a Brainstormer and Violent Nipples, or one side of level 1 with a Beyond the Walls Levi. In some ways, they're more threatening and give you more options. And with all the stock you should be gaining by playing stock souls and free characters, you shouldn't have a problem laying down some early plays and using your Brainstormer to compress yourself. Your single ray of light Levi's also help with this after the first refresh. During the tail end of level 1 and all of level 2, since you'll be playing a lot more cards in your waiting room, you can hold a lot of finishers in your hand. Stockpile up on Hondas and 1 Levi, and when you hit level 3, you can unleash a lot of finishing power. Between the stock you'll gain over the game and the low cost of your level 3, it should be no problem for you to get at least 2 claw kicks and 1 restand off. And that's really it. Your toolbox isn't tough to use at all, and it's nicely integrated. If you get into trouble, one thing to remember is that your level 1 and level 3 Levi don't actually need a climax combo to work, and most of your bodies don't cost stock. Erwin is a great get out of jail free card if you need a little more power, and if you're running into stuff like Darkness Plan or Opposition by the Shield, Cleanup Levi can nullify that for your restander. A lot of pieces of the deck come together smoothly during gameplay, and it feels really good to lay them down. So the only thing left to do is to rank it. First, we have consistency. Squad Goals has a ton of digging available to it, and the combos are really easy to execute. What's more, they don't require the climax in some cases, so hitting level 1 without the climax, while not as good, isn't the end of the world. Between digging, Akatsuki's, and search brainstormers, it's unlikely that you won't find what you need. The only thing is your level 1 game doesn't search or salvage, so you'll be relying mostly on your brainstormers and single lights to get what you need. Overall, I give it an A-. How about skill? So like we said before, the deck has a lot of options for setting up and getting what you need. The combo is self-explanatory and easy to execute. The deck is generous with stock, and it's easy to make the cards do what they're supposed to. The only thing to look out for here is to pick your single ray of light and brainstorm targets carefully, and with your game plan in mind of how you'll approach the upcoming levels. Don't use the combo without having the pieces in the waiting room, and don't waste characters you don't have to. The main thing is not to play yourself into a corner where you have no climaxes and nothing that you actually need at the moment in your hand. Since you don't hold a lot of level 1s and 2s, it might be easy to find yourself with nothing to play if your field gets wiped, so keep that in mind. All that said, I give it a B+. And finally, we come to power. So what can this deck offer us in terms of power? Well, sure, Humanity's Strongest Soldier is tough to reverse, and Levi and Hanj get big at level 3, but other than that, the deck's power and explosiveness is actually quite low. The deck is way more efficient than powerful. A lot of bodies are free and come into play without spending cards, but they're small and relatively non-threatening. Beyond the Walls Levi is kind of tough to deal with, but other than that, there's not much that you feel that your opponent will have trouble with. The biggest thing about the deck is that stuff will just keep coming back, and it'll be tough to win in a resource game against it if the pilot's playing smart. So while there are some large threats out there, it's not the majority of the deck. I give it a straight B. So what we're looking at here is a cool off-meta deck that can really hold its own and stay together under pressure. It's pretty different, I give it that, but it also rewards good fundamentals like good search target selection and good card position awareness. If you keep good track of where everything is and your current potential, the deck will run like butter. It's a different flavor in the candy that's Attack on Titan, so if you're tired of Metacore or just want something new on your taste buds, I'd give it a shot. And check out the game featuring the deck as well to get a good look at how it plays. This is the end of the second part of our Titan Rondo, players. Next time we've got something a little strange, a little unique, and packed full of more combos in the snack aisle at a 7-Eleven, so look forward to it. That's all, players. Peace.